All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're completely zooming out. We aren't going to look at society as a bunch of individuals, and we are purposefully stepping away from focusing on any specific historical figures today. Instead, we're looking at society as a grand, meticulously engineered machine. Honestly, the 11th century blueprint we're going to explore reads way more like a modern software architecture manual or, one of those city building video games than an ancient text.
So, to understand how this machine is actually built, here is our agenda. First, we'll look at the blueprint of society itself. Second, faith and political authority. Third, comprehensive justice and security. Fourth, economic prosperity and hope. And finally, achieving social harmony. Let's get right into it.
Part 1, the blueprint of society. Let's look at the foundational mechanics.
In this framework, the absolute ultimate goal of any societal structure is Islah. Basically, think of Islah as comprehensive reform. It's the primary organizing force pushing back against total chaos. You can picture it as the continuous, daily maintenance required to keep the world's affairs harmonized so the whole machine doesn't just, completely break down. And the theory says this framework relies on 6 load-bearing pillars. These literally have to exist all at the exact same time to prevent a society from collapsing inward. We're talking about a followed religion, a dominant political authority, comprehensive justice, common security, economic prosperity, and abundant opportunities. If you take away even just one of these gears, the whole system starts to stutter and fail.
Moving right along to part 2, faith and political authority. We're looking at shared beliefs and structural power here.
Now, for the system to function properly, it requires 2 interconnected gears of learning. On one side, we have sacred learning. This manages the internal compass of the population. It watches over spiritual obligations and harmonizes collective opinions. But then, on the exact opposite side, we have political learning, and this is entirely designed to manage the external, physical, practical reality of the state. It's a brilliant dual-engine setup.
This classical maxim acts as a structural axiom in the theory. Basically, it's asserting that a society absolutely cannot function if it only caters to material, physical needs while completely neglecting a unifying, higher moral purpose. You literally need both the internal and the external working in total unison to achieve real stability.
To maintain that incredibly critical balance, the theory outlines 7 rigid, systemic functions that political authority has to perform. Just notice how mechanical these are. Protecting the belief system, defending property and lives, building core infrastructure and roads, managing public funds with strict equity, administering justice, applying precise penalties, and appointing highly qualified administrators. Authority in this blueprint is meant to operate entirely as a predictable administrative engine. It's not a platform for anyone's personal power.
But you might be wondering, how does this blueprint handle the ultimate threat to literally any system? Human nature, right? What actually keeps the aggressive, competitive parts of the machine from just destroying one another?
Well, the framework is surprisingly pragmatic here. It suggests that while intellect and shared values are absolutely crucial, they can and do fail. So the ultimate safeguard of the system, the emergency brake, if you will, is the deterrent power of a dominant, centralized authority. Because intellect and religion can become weak, a strong systemic authority is completely necessary to restrain human aggression when personal morality inevitably falls short. All right, part 3, comprehensive justice and security. These are basically the load-bearing walls of our societal machine.
The theory breaks down justice, but not just as a courtroom legal system. It views justice as a massive, multi-directional structural force that governs absolutely every possible interaction in the social hierarchy. It flows inward as personal moderation, it flows downward to those of lower status by making things easy and removing hardship, it flows upward to superiors through sincere, determined support, and it flows horizontally to peers by avoiding arrogance and preventing harm. It is a completely comprehensive web. And this is where it gets really mathematical. Every single positive societal virtue is mapped out as a precise mean, an intermediate gear balanced perfectly between 2 destructive extremes. For example, courage is the exact middle point between cowardice and foolhardiness. Generosity sits directly between stinginess and being dangerously wasteful. For the whole society to run efficiently, human behavior has to be perfectly calibrated to stay right in this middle groove.
This is such a fascinating foundational axiom. It essentially suggests that in a perfectly engineered society where justice flows flawlessly,
The need for individual heroics or bravery is entirely engineered out of the system. Think about it. You just don't need heroes stepping up to fight for what's right if the system itself is structurally designed to guarantee fairness automatically. It's a pretty wild thought. The framework presents this in a very stark systemic binary. Justice acts as the ultimate stabilizing force, while injustice is treated like a literal virus. Injustice acts as a systemic contagion. It sets patterns of corruption that exponentially increase until the fabric of the nation completely collapses. Once those gears start slipping, the damage accelerates faster than anything else.
Moving to part 4, economic prosperity and hope. Let's look at the fuel that allows this structure to actually grow.
This prosperity feedback loop is so interesting because it demonstrates that general wealth isn't just about individuals having money. It's actually a mechanical requirement for eliminating societal friction. When you have widespread economic prosperity, generosity naturally goes up. That diminishes envy and deprivation, which then enhances social bonding and compassion. It's this perfectly closed loop that literally manufactures social harmony.
So the key takeaway here is that economic prosperity is not some random occurrence. It's the manufactured output of combining physical safety with fair administration. You've got human industry, which can only operate if there's physical security, and you have natural resources, which can only be properly utilized if systemic justice is in place, ensuring fair distribution. The two engines have to run together.
The system identifies this abundant hope or ample opportunity as the driving mechanism that forces humans to build infrastructure and cultivate resources for a future they themselves will never even live to see. Hope is the forward momentum gear. Without it, long-term societal planning just completely grinds to a halt.
Finally, part 5, achieving social harmony. Let's look at how this builds towards seamless functionality.
Without that mechanism of expansive hope we just talked about, the theory argues that the societal machine would revert to mere short-term survival. People would only strive for their daily needs, passing down nothing but ruins to the next generation. But with this whole framework in place, you achieve generational architecture. This is where successive generations act as continuous builders, completing what the previous ones started and organizing affairs across vast stretches of time. This principle introduces a really beautiful paradox. The ultimate goal of this meticulously rigid system is actually absolute adaptability. A perfectly designed societal machine isn't just stuck in place. It requires the continuous adjustment of its gears to maintain harmony, regardless of changing historical or environmental circumstances. Adaptability is the real key to longevity. So, as we step back from this 11th century blueprint, we really have to ask ourselves, looking at our own complex systems of authority, justice, and prosperity, how well is our societal machine running today? If a society really does function like a meticulously engineered machine, which of these ancient structural gears is slipping in our modern world? And maybe more importantly, what will it actually take to realign them? It's definitely something to think about.